My husband's sister stole my money and some valuables from the locker. After secretly gathering evidence, I exposed her at a family gathering, only for my husband to erupt in anger, shouting and siding with her. He took off his shoe and hit me on the head, knocking me to the ground. I decided on revenge, but just before the police arrived, something unexpected happened that changed everything. Hi, I'm Emma, a 35-year-old marketing strategist living in Brighton. Life here often feels like a dream: chilly sea breeze, beautiful coastline, and a vibrant local scene. My husband, David, is a high-ranking software engineer, and we've built a life together that many would envy. We live in a gorgeous home filled with modern decor, and our weekends are usually packed with brunches, parties, and outings with friends. Everything appeared to be perfect, or at least that's what I thought. But life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges our way. It all started when David's sister, Lisa, lost her job. She's 30 and had been struggling to find stable work for a while, so when she reached out asking if she could stay with us, I felt compelled to say yes. After all, family is important, right? Little did I know that saying yes would set off a chain of events that would shatter my perception of my perfect life. Lisa moved in shortly after losing her job. At first, I was hopeful that having her around would strengthen our family bond. We tried to make her feel comfortable by including her in our daily routines, but soon I began to notice strange things happening around the house. It started with my favorite luxury watch. I had left it on the dresser one night, only to find it missing the next morning. When I asked Lisa about it, she laughed and said, "Oh, I thought it was mine. My bad." I brushed it off, thinking it was just a silly mistake. After all, who would think twice about a watch? But that was just the beginning. As days passed, I started noticing other items disappearing: my diamond ring, makeup, and even a designer handbag. Each time I confronted Lisa, she waved it off, insisting it was an honest mistake. "I'm sorry, Emma, I didn't mean to take your things. I just got confused." David always seemed to side with her, which made my skin crawl. "Babe, you know Lisa's going through a tough time. You shouldn't jump to conclusions," he would say, dismissing my concerns. The real turning point came when I discovered money missing from my personal lockbox. I had always kept a stash of cash there, mostly for emergencies, but one day I found a few $1,500 bills gone. Panic set in, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Lisa was somehow involved. I confronted David about it, my voice trembling. "David, I think Lisa has been stealing from me. I'm missing money." He barely looked up from his laptop. "Maybe you just forgot you spent it, Emma. You know how it is. Sometimes we miscount," he replied casually. I felt my heart sink. My own husband didn't believe me. It felt like I was losing my grip on reality, and that's when I realized something was seriously wrong. David was blind to the manipulation happening under our roof, and it made me question everything. Frustration boiled inside me, and I decided I had to take matters into my own hands. I devised a plan to catch Lisa red-handed. I bought some invisible ink and carefully marked a few $1,500 bills. I also set up a hidden camera in my walk-in closet where the lockbox was located. I knew this was a risk, but I had to know the truth. Days turned into a week, and I was on edge. Each day, I would come home and check the footage, heart racing, hoping for a glimpse of what was happening in my own home. Finally, on the fourth day, I got my first real break. There she was, Lisa, boldly rummaging through my lockbox. She took the marked bills and even one of my rings. My heart pounded as I watched the betrayal unfold before my eyes. "Got you," I whispered to myself, determination flooding my veins. Armed with this proof, I felt a mix of anger and relief. It was time to confront Lisa. I found her in the living room, casually scrolling through her phone. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's up?" she replied with a disinterested tone, still not looking up. "I know you've been taking money from my lockbox," I said, my heart racing. "I have proof." Her eyes narrowed, and for a second, I could see the mask slipping. "What do you mean?" That's crazy. I would never do that. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling slightly. I've got it all on camera. You can either come clean, or we do this the hard way. Her bravado faltered for a moment, and then she forced a laugh. You think I'm scared of some footage? Good luck convincing David. He'll never believe you over his sister. Her words hit me like a slap in the face. I felt a deep sense of betrayal, not just from her, but from David as well. I couldn't believe how twisted this situation had become. I was not just fighting for my belongings, but for my dignity and sanity. The tension in the air thickened as I realized that my confrontation with Lisa was just the beginning. The battle lines were drawn. I was ready to expose the truth, but little did I know this would lead to a confrontation that would change everything. As I lay in bed that night, a mix of emotions swirled inside me: anger, frustration, and a newfound determination. I had to take action before it was too late. The upcoming family gathering was just around the corner, and I decided then and there that I would reveal everything. But in doing so, I couldn't help but wonder what the fallout would be. Would David finally believe me, or would this lead to an even greater betrayal? Only time would tell. The day of the family gathering arrived, and I felt a knot in my stomach. It was supposed to be a joyful occasion, a chance to celebrate David's recent promotion at work. But all I could think about was the confrontation that awaited me. David's family would be there, and I knew this was my opportunity to finally expose Lisa. I could hardly sleep the night before, rehearsing what I would say over and over in my head. Would they believe me? Would David finally stand by my side? That morning, I chose a navy blue dress that hugged my curves just right. It made me feel confident, as if I could face whatever lay ahead. David walked into the bedroom, smiling. "You look beautiful, Emma," he said, planting a kiss on my forehead. His words should have comforted me, but instead, they felt like a mask hiding the tension between us. "Thanks, David. I just hope everything goes well today," I replied, forcing a smile. "Of course. Everyone is excited to see you," he said, oblivious to the storm brewing in my mind. When we arrived at his parents' house, the atmosphere was lively. David's mom, Susan, was bustling around in the kitchen, and the smell of grilled meat filled the air. Relatives mingled in the backyard, sipping drinks and catching up. I forced myself to be social, chatting with David's cousins and laughing at their jokes, but my mind was elsewhere. As the afternoon wore on, I caught glimpses of Lisa chatting animatedly with the family, her laughter ringing out as if nothing was amiss. I felt my blood boil. How could she act so carefree when she had been stealing from me? I glanced at David, who was completely engrossed in a conversation about work, blissfully unaware of the drama lurking beneath the surface. Finally, it was time for the main event, the toast for David's promotion. Everyone gathered around, glasses in hand, and I took a deep breath, my heart racing. This was it. As David stood up to speak, I felt a wave of determination wash over me. "Thanks, everyone, for coming. It means a lot to have my family here to celebrate this achievement," David began, and the crowd erupted in cheers. I watched him beam with pride, and for a moment, I felt a pang of nostalgia for the man I fell in love with. After the toast, David raised his glass again. "I just want to say how grateful I am for my amazing sister, Lisa. She's always been there for me." That was my cue. As applause filled the air, I stood up, feeling the weight of every eye in the room turned toward me. "I need to say something too," I announced, my voice shaking slightly. "It's important." David's smile faltered, and he looked at me, confusion etched on his face. Emma, maybe now isn't the time." "No, David, it's time to address some things," I interrupted, my heart pounding in my chest. "Lisa has been stealing from me. I have proof." Gasps filled the room, and Lisa's face turned pale. "What are you talking about?" she exclaimed, her voice rising in pitch. "You can't just accuse me like that." "I'm not accusing you without evidence," I shot back, pulling out my phone. "I have video footage of you taking money from my lockbox. And don't think I'm not aware of the jewelry you've borrowed." I connected my phone to the TV, and the screen lit up with footage of Lisa rummaging through my closet. The room fell silent as everyone watched, eyes wide with shock. I felt a mixture of relief and dread. This was the moment I had been waiting for, but I couldn't shake the fear of how David would react. "See," I said, pointing at the screen. "That's you, Lisa, taking my money. How can you deny this?" Lisa's face twisted in anger. "You set me up. This is insane. You're just trying to ruin my life," she shouted, but her voice lacked the confidence it had before. Before I could respond, David stood up, his face flushed with anger. "You did this? You humiliated her in front of everyone. What's wrong with you, Emma?" he yelled, his words hitting me like a punch. "You're a liar. You've always been so dramatic." Stunned, I stared at him. "David, this isn't about me. It's about the truth. She's been stealing from us." But he wasn't listening. "You've turned my family against me. How could you do this?" he continued, his voice rising. Then, in a shocking twist, he took off his shoe and hit me hard on the head. The room fell completely silent, and I felt a mixture of shock and disbelief wash over me. I had never imagined David would do something like that. The gasps from family members echoed in my ears, but my world had narrowed down to David and his furious expression. "Get out of my house, Emma. I want a divorce," he said, his voice cold and firm. The words struck me like a lightning bolt. In that moment, everything felt surreal. I had thought I would finally expose Lisa's deceit and reclaim my life, but instead, I was being thrown out of the very life I had built with David. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I grabbed my things and headed for the door. The shocked faces of my family-in-law blurred together. All I could hear was the pounding of my heart. Lisa, meanwhile, wore a victorious smirk, knowing she had manipulated the situation to her advantage. As I stepped outside, the world felt heavy. I could hardly breathe. I had stood up for myself, but it had cost me everything. Walking away from the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger battle. I knew I would have to find a way to regain my dignity and strength, even if it meant facing David and Lisa again. After that night, everything felt different. I left David's parents' house with my heart shattered, my mind racing, and my emotions swirling. I drove aimlessly around Brighton. The city that once felt like my sanctuary now seemed foreign and cold. How had it come to this? I never imagined that standing up for myself would lead to such a painful outcome. But I knew one thing: I couldn't let this defeat define me. I spent the night at a hotel, my heart heavy with betrayal. The following morning, as I stared at my reflection in the mirror, I realized I had a choice. I could either wallow in despair or fight back. Anger surged through me, igniting a fire that I hadn't felt before. I grabbed my phone and called my best friend, Sophie, who has been my closest confidant since college. She always had a way of lifting me up, and I needed her now more than ever. "Emma, thank God you called. I was so worried about you," Sophie said, her voice a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. "I'm a mess, Sophie. David took off his shoe and hit me, and he told me he wants a divorce. I don't even know where to begin," I confessed, my voice shaky. "You're stronger than you think. You need to take control of this situation. Have you considered getting a lawyer?" she suggested. "I know I should, but I'm scared," I admitted. "What if I lose everything?" "Emma, this is about your dignity and safety. You need to protect yourself. I'll help you find someone," Sophie reassured me. With her encouragement, I found a divorce attorney, Karen, who specialized in cases involving emotional and physical abuse. When I walked into her office, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. "I want to file for divorce," I told her, my voice steady. Karen listened attentively, taking notes as I recounted the events that had led me to this point. "It's important to document everything, Emma. We need to establish a pattern of his behavior," she said, her tone professional yet compassionate. "I'd also want to press charges for the assault. I can't let him get away with that," I declared, feeling empowered. "Absolutely. We can work on that as well. It's essential to hold him accountable for his actions," Karen replied, and I felt a surge of relief wash over me. I was finally taking control of my life. As the weeks went by, I immersed myself in work and the legal process. I was determined to rise in my marketing consulting career, channeling my energy into projects that inspired me. The long hours paid off. My boss noticed my dedication, and soon I was promoted to a senior position. The sense of accomplishment fueled my determination to move forward. Meanwhile, things were not going well for David and Lisa. Word of Lisa's theft began to spread within their family, and I learned through Sophie that she had been caught embezzling money from her new job. She's facing serious charges, Emma, Sophie told me one day over coffee. People are talking about it, and David isn't doing well either. His firm is losing clients because of all this drama. Hearing that news was bittersweet. I couldn't deny feeling a sense of satisfaction, knowing that Lisa was finally facing consequences, but I also worried about David. Despite everything, I still cared about him. I knew he had been manipulated by his sister, but I also recognized that I could no longer be the one to fix things for him. Then, one evening, as I was settling into my new apartment, my phone buzzed. It was a text from David. "Can we talk? I made a huge mistake." My heart raced at the thought of him reaching out, but I also felt a wall of defense rise within me. "Emma, don't do it," Sophie warned when I told her. "You've come so far. Don't let him pull you back in." "You're right. I have to think about my own well-being," I reminded myself, but part of me still hesitated. A few days later, I received an unexpected knock on my door. When I opened it, there stood David, looking disheveled and broken. "Emma, I need to explain," he started, his voice shaky. "I don't want to hear it, David. You made your choice," I said firmly, feeling a sense of clarity wash over me. I know I messed up. I should have believed you. I should have stood by you," he pleaded. I shook my head. "You didn't. And now I need to focus on myself." His face fell, and I could see the pain in his eyes. But I had to stay strong. "Please leave, David," I said, my voice unwavering. As I closed the door, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. I was moving on, reclaiming my life piece by piece. I realized that this was my journey now, and I would continue to fight for my happiness and self-respect, no matter the challenges ahead. Months passed, and the dust began to settle on my tumultuous life. I focused on rebuilding both personally and professionally. My divorce proceedings were underway, and each day I felt more empowered as I took steps to create a future that was truly my own. My legal battles were a mix of anxiety and hope, but I was determined not to let fear overshadow my journey. One afternoon, I received a call from Karen, my lawyer. "Emma, I have some news." "We've secured a settlement agreement with David," she said. My heart raced. "You'll receive a fair share of the assets, and we'll ensure there's a restraining order in place regarding any contact from him." "Thank you, Karen. This means a lot," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. In that moment, I realized I was finally free. Free to rebuild, free to move on, and free to embrace the future on my own terms. I had fought so hard to get to this point, and now it felt like I was finally free from the chains of my past. That evening, I decided to celebrate this small victory. I called Sophie and invited her over for a little housewarming party. "We need to toast to your new life," she exclaimed, excitement evident in her voice. I spent the next few hours preparing appetizers and arranging flowers, relishing the calm and joy that filled my new apartment. When Sophie arrived, she brought a bottle of champagne. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass, "and to kicking toxic people out of your life." We laughed and reminisced about our college days, enjoying the freedom of being ourselves. For the first time in a long while, I felt genuinely happy. The burdens of the past seemed lighter, and I felt more in control of my future. A few weeks later, while out for a morning walk with my newly adopted rescue dog, Benny, I ran into an old acquaintance, Mark, from the fashion industry. "Emma, it's been ages. How have you been?" he asked, a genuine smile lighting up his face. "I'm doing well, actually. Just got out of a rough patch," I said, trying to keep it light. Rough patch. I heard about David and Lisa. You've shown incredible strength, Emma, he said, his eyes filled with admiration. Thanks, Mark. I'm learning to prioritize my happiness, I replied, a sense of pride swelling within me. We ended up grabbing coffee together, and as we talked, I felt a connection that I hadn't experienced in a long time. We exchanged numbers, and for the first time, I allowed myself to be open to the possibility of new relationships. It felt strange but exciting to think about moving forward. One evening, I received an unexpected message from David. It read, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I realize now how much I hurt you. I hope you find happiness." My heart twisted at his words. I didn't want to relive the pain, but I also recognized that he was finally acknowledging the hurt he had caused. I took a deep breath, deciding to respond with kindness, but also clarity. "Thank you, David. I appreciate your message, but I need to focus on myself now. I wish you well, but I cannot go back." I hit send, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I was closing the door on the past once and for all. As I settled down for the night, Benny curled up beside me, and I reflected on everything I had been through. I realized that this journey wasn't just about survival, it was about transformation. I had learned the importance of self-respect and the power of standing up for myself, even when it felt like the world was against me. With each passing day, I felt stronger, more capable, and ready to embrace whatever life had in store. I had faced betrayal, but I had also found resilience. In reclaiming my life, I discovered that sometimes losing everything is the first step toward finding yourself and building a brighter, more empowered future.